but there was a rally in Charlotte, and there's a street preacher there that has been there for a long time. His name's Sam, and he was just holding up a sign that says Jesus saves, and he got covered with eggs and all sorts of things and silly string. And then the rioters at one point started chanting, F your Jesus,
Yeah,
as
I
they
heard
were
about
marching
that.
down. And so just wanting to know, first of all, just like, obviously there's a desire, at least in people's hearts, that want justice and want society to be whole, and for, you know, no ethnic groups to be marginalized. But at this point, it seems like some of these BLM rallies are going beyond just the idea of, you know, let's elevate Black people and make sure that they matter in our society. What do you guys think? What's the end goal? Why are they going into things like F your Jesus?
You know, at some point, we gotta stop kidding ourselves. And I know that you're more aware, you're just being polite, but I'm not really that surprised by it. At this point, you know, there's been enough that I've seen that, you know, my mind has been made up anyway. You know, I never really was big on the Black Lives Matter movement. I'll tell you a quick story real quick. In 2016, I had an experience with the Black Lives Matter movement when I lived in living in South Carolina at the time. And I forget who it was that had just got killed. It might have been Terrence Crutcher, or I forget who it was, but they invited us all to the movement down there invited us to it was like a showing of Fruitvale Station. We was all supposed to sit there in this room and watch this movie and just identify with the you know, the experience of him at that time. And it was a sad movie, but I just remember at the end they all like stood up and they started like wanted us to hold hands in a circle and meditate. And it was just, to me, it was really strange. It was really weird. So since then, because I got a text the next day, it was like, oh, we would like to give you a formal invite to join the Black Lives Matter. I'm like, nah, because it just wasn't odd to me. It was just way off. So since then, I always just felt like, and like I said, it was like a room full of mostly white people and maybe like 2 or 3 Black people, but you can tell that they weren't the kind of Black people that live in these environments that are portrayed, you know, in these incidents. You know what I mean? They don't, you can just tell. So since then, I knew it was something about at least segments of that movement that weren't entirely genuine. It was just weird to me. But fast forward to now, man, you done seen so much stuff. They come out as Marxists, they anti-family, anti-God. Like, you know, to me, I'm surprised they ain't say it sooner. So I'm just not, my faith, if ever I had any in that movement, is not, so as far as I'm concerned, they're exposed. As far as I'm concerned, you know, it is what it is. I know that I don't support the movement. I don't support the organization. I don't support the lies that they spew. I don't support the Marxism, the socialism, the victim mentality that they push on everybody. I don't support none of it. So I expect them to say more things like that and do more things like that. And I actually think that it's good because it helps people that are on the fence distinguish between who they're, and really understand who they're dealing with, right? Because people like say, oh, well, it's not about this. And like, no, they telling you this is who they are. I think my answer.
Yeah, but Dom,
say who they are, believe them.
Hey Dom, do you see a distinction though between like Black Lives Matter, the movement? Because you're talking about both, and like the organization. Because like as far as the organization goes, I definitely agree with you. I think there's a lot of things that are very problematic. I mean, obviously, like with this thing going on, I think there's different things, and I'll talk about that in a second. Like with what happened at this Charlotte rally, but I think the organization definitely has some issues. Like you mentioned, being Marxist, kind of against the family and that stuff. It's not like stuff that's randomly being said about them. It's actually what's on their website that they put out there. But as far as the movement goes, to me, at least for me, and like people that in my community, people that I like care about, to me, it's more about like, for me, it's something, you know, something that's not Black. I'm professing that, hey, like my friends, even my family members that I have that are black, like their lives matter. They matter to me, And so like, I have no problem supporting the movement. But then it's the organization, like you mentioned, that's definitely problematic. Do you see a distinction between the two, or are you kind of think in your mind they're kind of one and the same?
I see the distinction that people try to create, but
Mm-hmm.
who, like, before the Black Lives Matter, did you think your black friends didn't matter? Like, did
Well,
you
no, of
think
course not. Yeah.
they were only important once the organization came? Like, my life has mattered my whole life. I've loved my friends and
Yeah,
family my whole
absolutely.
life. I didn't need Trayvon Martin to die for me to care about my community. So, I mean, I think that's the rope, that's the line, that's the bait that they give people. It's like, well, don't you care about Black lives? And so that people
Mm-hmm.
don't feel guilty or feel like they're being called a racist, they capitulate. But really, the organization is what it is. They are the movement. You can't separate the two,
Mm-hmm.
at least not in my mind, because they're the ones pushing that narrative. So, I mean,
Yeah.
I see the distinction that people try to paint, but in reality, the end goal is to get you to support the organization or at least to echo their talking points. So I don't really think there's a real distinction to be made because the
Mm-hmm.
organization is the movement. They started it. It's theirs. It's their baby.
Yeah.
So try to
Yeah.
put a
No,
dress on the
I
pig.
get that. That makes sense. I think that the thing that's tough, though, I think that the problem, maybe the line that gets blurry, is you have a lot of people that don't distinguish or that don't see or that see they weren't really aware of the BLM organization beforehand, but then obviously got big as a movement, picked up big time, especially this year. Because it's hard for me to see, like, say, for example, my black friends or people of color that are friends of mine posting about like Black Lives Matter, like, and if I refute that with some of the facts and things that you've said, then it's like, well, hey, that's almost against them. Like, hey, I don't care about them because they're the ones. So it's almost like, hey, yes, this movement might have a meaning, this organization might have a specific meaning, but like my friends, the people that I deeply care about and love, they're posting it for a reason and it means something to them. And so like, who am I? Not just because I'm white, but who am I to say to them like, hey, I don't care about what you're posting or I don't agree with like. But they're really just trying to say, hey, like, I want to let people know that I matter. You know what I mean?
No, I get
So
it. We can be compassionate and people have a right to post or express whatever they want to express.
yeah,
But I'm just saying, as far as me, like, I didn't need that
yeah,
movement to tell me that my life was important or that anybody's
yeah,
life is important. Like, everybody's lives
absolutely.
matter, but it's
Yeah,
really just it's the narrative. One of the problems I have with Black Lives Matter or saying Black Lives Matter or echoing their talking points is you promote their narrative. That organization has made $1 billion. You know what I mean? Since and they don't do nothing
yeah,
for black communities. So
that's fair.
I
Yeah,
get the desire to want to support your friends, but that's just called being a good friend. You don't have to say Black Lives Matter to me to tell me you love me. If you
yeah.
want your friends to know you love them, just tell them you love them.
Or
That's it.
actions. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's good.
Talking about there's a Charlotte BLM rally last week where they went through the streets chanting "F your Jesus," so Josh, go ahead and speak into that.
Yeah, so obviously, like, first off, that hurts. It hurts hearing it. Especially if you're a follower of Jesus, that really hurts. If you feel it deeply. I kind of looked into it more when you mentioned this. Hey, these things we're going to be talking about. So obviously, I looked at stuff on both sides, trying to see like where's the shred or kernels of truth in here as people talk about their opinions about the things that happened. And I think a lot of what happened was that this guy, the street preacher Sam was, he was, chanting or yell out loudly saying like, Jesus saves or whatever during their rally. So I think a lot of us on both sides is you have these like this mob mentality on their side. They feel like they're being drowned out by this guy talking about Jesus when they're trying to act like, well, hey, that doesn't matter right now. Like we need to promote and shout that Black Lives Matter. And so I think that they took offense to it and then like, trying to clap back like and say, what they said. And it's just foolishness on both sides. I think that, and it is sad that the guy who, actually watching the video and hearing it getting, it wasn't just like one person hearing it being like kind of chanted back, and around. It definitely hurt. But I think a lot of it's just like, aggression and like agitation on both sides. And then anytime you have a mob, this mob mentality happens, and you see it everywhere. It's happening in Portland. It's happening in Kenosha. It's happening everywhere, where people aren't thinking. It's groupthink, and it's like foolishness, 'Cause I guarantee, I hope that if you went and talked to those individual people, I feel like half of them would be like, well, no, I don't really believe that, just got caught up in the moment. So it's sad. It hurts. I think, like Dom mentioned, like, yeah, it's not a surprise from the organization if it was, being led by the organization, but just that mob mentality, like things will be said that aren't meant. So while it hurts, at the same time, I don't take it as like, all right, this is a direct offensive and like an aggression towards Christianity. I mean, like Dom mentioned with other things, that's been happening for the past 20, 30 years or longer, in pop culture.
Josh, I appreciate your point, what you're bringing up about like if it could be potentially agitating if a guy shows up to a BLM march and he's got a sign that says Jesus saves, and it's kind of like, well, are you going there to pick a fight? But as I did my research on this guy, he's actually been in that neighborhood on those streets for years.
Yeah,
so
I saw that.
I don't really see him as going there then to specifically pick a fight with them, but rather just keeping in what he's been doing for years.
Yeah.
And so it's
no, yeah, you're right. I saw that I think it was just the sense of what was going on at the time. I think I agree with you. I don't think he's there to agitate, but I think that because there was this mob there, they're not going to listen. They're not have open ears to anything that he's saying. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I wonder. It's interesting to me that in our pursuit of being about what this, what I've been communicated, what I've been told is that this is about a pursuit of justice, about a pursuit of equality, these types of things. This guy, Sam, was a black dude. And for me, the big question, and Dom and AJ have heard this from me before, is the big question is dignity, is what's actually bringing dignity to the black community. And it seems like it's difficult to know how, if you like, as I'm trying to navigate, what does it look like to care for people well? I have tons of friends who have great desires in their hearts, and through that great desire, they've gotten on board with the BLM movement because they desire that justice and they desire that dignity. But it seems like a number of these things that we're seeing, whether it's the riots and the burning of the Bibles, or it's the BLM rally in Charlotte, F Your Jesus, and that's been on signs elsewhere too. It seems like that there's potentially like almost kind of hook, line, and sinker going on, maybe a bait and switch, as far as like this seemed like it was about the dignity of the black community, but it's potentially not if there's a guy who's a black dude that's been in a neighborhood for a long time holding up a sign letting people know that Jesus loves them, and he gets egged and silly string. How is this any more about giving dignity to the black community?
It's not, man.
Yeah.
It's not. And it never has been. It never for 1 minute was about the dignity of black people. The only thing that's happening now is that we've had enough time and we've had enough space to objectively look at the movement.
So I know, AJ, you've gone and you've tried to be out kind of on the street at times. And is it a sense of trying to agitate, or what's the goal there?
I am in the trenches. We're doing, I've been to Portland. I've been downtown Salem, where we are doing Church in the Park. And it is a direct, even when they're not being provoked, it is a direct assault against believers. I've seen it firsthand. And it's all in the name of Black Lives. The event, or Black Lives Matter, the events that we put on, I could just recall just last Sunday we did a multicultural service where a Russian church was there, Spanish church was there, a predominantly Black church was there, predominantly white church was there, and this was advertised. And Black Lives Matter showed up to intentionally let us know fervently that they were against our God and against our movement. They let it be known. They were not provoked. No one said anything to it. They showed up with about 50, 60 people with the intention to interrupt our service, and with the intention to intimidate. That's the word that I'm looking for. And in Portland, the burning of Bibles. You go there. We were trying to witness to some people in Portland at the Sean Foltz. I don't know if you know who he is, but the events that he put on, we were witnessing to people, and it was direct aggression against believers, and they fervently let us know when they showed up with their signs, F your Jesus. They had the satanic signs. Just showing up unprovoked. If you watch a lot of, and again, this is the movement, right? The BLM Inc. The leaders of it, they let you know that they're against anything Christ, and just like there are people, because I have believers, I have friends who support Black Lives Matter, but they don't really understand it. They don't really know what's going on. But just like there's things circulating that they are fervently against Jesus Christ, and that trickles down. It's not just a saying. It's not just. That's why I don't hashtag Black Lives Matter or I don't support any of it, because it is not just a saying. It is empowering this organization to control the thought and the culture. Because if you look at it, what have they really done to help Black people? What have they really done? The marching, the rioting, all this thing, this does not help. They talk about Martin Luther King, but that's not the only thing he did was march. He was affecting society in ways that would bring about change. And so that's why I can't get with the organization, because what you are seeing, and especially here in Oregon, from what I'm seeing, is they are fervently against Jesus Christ. They're fervently against anybody who stands for Jesus Christ. I'm up preaching. I'm Black. I thought my lives matter. Why are you chanting when I'm preaching the gospel right now? Why are you, it's this hypocrisy, because it's not about Black lives. That's not what this organization is about. It's actually about another agenda that they're trying to push, because if they were really trying to affect Black lives, why aren't there programs being put in place? Why isn't there money being poured into inner cities? Why isn't nobody talking about fatherlessness? Why isn't these things being addressed? Why isn't there programs to help single mothers get off of welfare so that they can get married? Come on. There's a lot of things that are wrong with the Black community that Black Lives Matter is not addressing.